Hello and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori and this is Africa 54. Tonight, African mediators say they held productive talks with South Sudan's President Salva Kiir as they try to prevent the conflict from becoming a civil war. Violence in the world's newest nation has already claimed 500 lives, among them 3 UN peacekeepers. The United Nations says Nuer tribesmen breached a UN compound in Jonglei State, north of the capital, allegedly killing some locals along with the 2 Indian peacekeepers. Dozens of additional peacekeepers are expected to arrive Friday at the base in the town of Akobo. President Salva Kiir, a Dinka, has accused former Vice President Riek Machar and Nuer of attempting a coup this week on the army headquarters in Juba, setting off days of violence. As thousands sought refuge Thursday, the government said rebel soldiers had seized control of Bor, a town north of Juba, but denied the violence is spreading.
No, it is not true other than Bor that violence are in other areas. You know, when you are a rebel, you will magnify things, make the situation as bad as hell, so that it is unlivable. But those of us who know the truth, it is only Bor, as I said. We will try to give necessary protection to our civilians in almost all the towns.
A UN mission spokesman says people fleeing the violence in Bor have sought refuge at its mission.
We welcome President Kiir's invitation to open a dialogue with the anti-government forces. We hope that the violence can be contained, and we're heartened by the improved security situation here in the capital. But fighting is breaking out in other parts of South Sudan, and we offer our services in any way that can be useful.
U.S. President Barack Obama has called for an end to the fighting, warning it threatens to plunge South Sudan back into the dark days of its past. Well, President Obama also announced that 45 U.S. troops have been sent to help protect the American embassy and interests in the country. For the latest, we are joined via Skype by VOA's East Africa correspondent Gabe Joselow is in Nairobi. Hello, Gabe.
Hi, Vincent.
Yeah, now, we know that President Salva Kiir has invited Riek Machar, the former vice president, to talks. Does Mr. Machar appear to be interested in talking to Mr. Kiir?
So far, the answer is no. We have not seen any return of that sentiment from Mr. Machar. We saw some statements from him earlier today to some other international media saying that it would be best for the country if Mr. Kiir, the current president, is removed from power, saying that the army and the government should get rid of him, accusing him once again of behaving like a dictator, which is a criticism that Mr. Machar has said in the past about Mr. Kiir. And if you recall, it was Machar was formerly Mr. Kiir's vice president until he was fired in July as part of a much wider cabinet reshuffle.
Now, the United Nations said today that it had sent helicopters to rescue its personnel from the base in southern Sudan. Britain is evacuating its citizens from that country. Is the situation getting worse?
It's hard to say. I mean, there's certainly been a lot of response to these incidents of violence. The incident at the UN base is particularly troubling. We have a little bit more details about that now. It's in Jonglei State, and what happened was about 2,000 Lao Nuer youth overran the compound, apparently. They killed 2 UN peacekeepers along with an unknown number of civilians who were taking refuge there. We know now that the UN has been able to get the rest of its staff out of that area and into another base further north, but we don't really know the full details about what happened to the civilians that were still in that area. So really troubling stuff. And that was yesterday. Today it seems to have been a little bit more quiet, although there are reports of fighting in other places outside of Jonglei and outside of Juba. So we'll have to see what happens. It's certainly not a good situation.
Now, you are in Nairobi. It's one of the countries where people are kind of coming back to. Are you seeing a whole lot of plane loads of people fleeing southern Sudan?
Yeah, a lot of the evacuation flights are coming through Nairobi. That includes the flights from that are evacuating U.S. citizens from the country. We've also seen a number of South Sudanese return. We spoke to a former, a current government official yesterday who had fled the violence, really afraid for his own life, and described some really chaotic scenes inside of Juba. He didn't feel safe. So he's laying low in Nairobi right now, as are a lot of other people. I think it's really very chaotic. People still do not feel safe, even if you're not hearing reports of real open fighting on the streets of the capital.
Very quickly, what is the government of Mr. Kiir saying in terms of its control over the entire country of South Sudan?
Well, they've said that they're still fighting to get control over Jonglei again. They've said that that area has been taken over by basically a rebel faction of the SPLA, the army there. Other than that, they haven't really said that they've lost much other territory.
Well, thanks a lot. Gabe Joselow, viewers, East Africa correspondent, reporting live from Nairobi.